In this video, I'm going to show you how to do time warp slow-mo adjustments to the timing of your animation. Now, in this project, we have that happening, but it's not happening with sort of the Unreal Engine tool method. It's happening manually. The animators manually animated the slow motion with just slower keyframe data and just general animation timing. But let's say that you had animated something and you realize later, I want this slow motion moment. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to leave this shot and go find another shot where maybe like here we've got these different moments of great impact and fight sequences. So let's add some slow motion to this. We'll use shot 60 as our example. He comes in, he uppercuts this dude and does this helicopter spin. Let's try some stuff. We can do one of these punches. We can obviously do the spin, or maybe we'll do this wham right there. I really like this last punch because it's got all this cool chromatic aberration effects drawing stuff there. I feel like that'd be sweet. So maybe we'll do that punch in slow-mo. Now in this particular case, because we're looking at the full production, right? We have this whole list of subsequence data. You know, we've got the effects, we've got lighting, we've got a lot of different things all playing into this. If it were just animation, then we could apply this to just the animation track. And if I want to do a time effect to the entire shot as a whole, what I can do is I can add a new track to my sequencer. So I'll say add time warp. And there's different kinds of time warps. There's also different ways you can do this, but this is the way I'm going to go with today. Now there are a couple different ways we can add slow motion to a shot as a whole. For example, if I go into add, there is something called a time dilation track. That's a thing, but I'm going to use time warp. And there are two kinds of time warp, a play rate curve or a time warp curve. Let's experiment with both. So I'll start off by saying add time warp, and we'll start with the play rate curve. If I drop that in, what that's going to give me is sort of this extra little, it's going to give me this extra track on top with a value of 1. And 1 is basically the speed of time represented here. So I've got my regular playhead and then my like representative playhead. So if I come in here and maybe I'll go to this frame, I'll set a key on my play rate curve here. I'll go, you know, maybe 2 frames deeper, and I'm going to slow this down to like 0.2. So now you can see that I'm now changing the rate of time. And it's an interesting thing that's happening is that my regular playhead is telling me like how fast I should be going, like where the time of the timeline has, you know, continued to move through. But this little set of keys has now changed the rate of how time is progressing within the actual sequences. And that's this other orange thing. And so maybe what I'll do is I'll set this down to like 0.1. So, you know, actually, let me get rid of one of these keys. Let me go with my curve editor. If I go to my play rate curve, I can see the different values. Get rid of that. Move this over here. And now I can go, all right, here we go. And maybe I want to adjust this a little bit longer. Too far. Be further. You can see too, I mean, realistically, you can also see that like this was not meant to be played so slow. So I'm starting to see the duplicate arms. I'm also not seeing the actual contact point, right? So like the character's making contact here because that's where the animator intended for me to see it. But I'm now interpolating where the arm isn't actually connecting. Fun little fact just about Unreal is like you're able to interpolate like way down between keyframes. And so in this case, I might actually need to go in and make some tweaks to make this work, but whatever, it's fine. And then maybe I want to have here, I'll go ahead and re-key the playback curve and set this back to a value of 1. And so what's weird about this particular mode is I've set a play rate curve, I've got these keys, and the keys are like not exactly corresponding to the sequences that are underneath them. I'm basically keying the orange key in a way, like the orange playback curve, the brighter one, even though the keys are, it's strange. It's a little bit odd, I'll admit. So if I now go in here, he does this thing, swing, swing, attack, attack. and then it comes back to normal, and then it continues. I mean, it's really easy, right? Really easy way to just slow down time, and all the other stuff just works, and I can retime that really, really quickly. But I can also just say, you know what? Let's try something else. Delete. And now it'll play back at normal speed once again. So if I want to try the other method, I can go add time warp curve, or sorry, add time warp. And then this time I'll go to a time warp curve instead of a play rate curve. And this one, it's similar, but it's a little different. So I'll do the same thing in the same spot. I'll go right here, time warp curve, set a key. But this time, instead of having a play rate where it's like a value of 1 and then 0.2 is like 20% of the speed, in this case, a time warp curve is a direct control of the frame count. So here it's set to 850, but if I say, you know what, I want this to be like 837, what this will do is create an interpolation of the actual like frame numbers that I'm on. So if I take this and hit play, I'm going to see this animation play out, and then maybe I'll expand this and take this way further. It'll basically interpolate between frames, what was this? 835 or 831, and way over here, 878. Whatever 878 was supposed to be, where this orange one is, it's now being played over here. But then I've got to go back in, and I've got to sort of ramp back into regular time. Because I am not looking at linear time. And so now this is almost like how you can retime video reference inside of Maya, if you've ever done that, where I'm now directly controlling the actual frame numbers instead of the play rate. So this is more of a, I'm setting specific keys of the frames that I want to see at certain times. There goes that, and he plays back. And so this is, I think, a little bit more confusing, a little bit harder to work with in this particular way. Also, I don't usually like having like the time warp curve on like the full shot. I want the shot itself to sort of contain this information. And so this process, it's really easy to do, as you can see, but like where to organize it is the tricky part. I don't usually like to have those sort of high level time curves on like the top level sequence. I think it makes a little bit more sense to do it actually within this shot itself, because then we can control the playback like within the shot. And then when you go back out to the main edit, it's sort of self-contained. But depending on the way that the data is laid out, it may or may not make sense, because the whole like playhead leaving the bounds of like our cropped area here, like we only have however many frames we have until we hit this red line. Sometimes, depending on like if you've got all this stuff broken out into subsequences, or if you've got stuff cut off, you know, play with it. You might want to do it here in the shot. You might want to do it at the higher level sequence level. You typically don't want to do it like where your animation keyframes are, because then you're managing like keyframes in time, but time itself is being adjusted by this like higher level track. That can be a mess. So it's usually best to keep your actual keyframe data separate from your like time keyframe data. That way you're just like reading animation data and adjusting that with time versus having them both like work in the same environment. I wouldn't recommend that. But hopefully this was a cool way just so you can see, you know, how to add a really quick and easy slow motion effect without having to adjust all of your animation keyframes. However, that said, if your interpolation isn't like super spot on, you might need to do a little bit extra work to compensate for the fact that, you know, the animation wasn't originally intended to be seen so slow. All right, so if I step through it, you can see that we go from, you know, he anticipates and he just immediately punches him. And it looks great with this timeline. But as we interpolated, we saw some of the problems and the flaws with this animation. So on one hand, it makes slowing time down much easier, but on the other hand, it does create a little bit of extra animation work. But is that less work than actually having to animate the entire thing fully in slow-mo yourself? Up to you, your call. That's the whole thing with these tools in Unreal, is it gives you so many options, so many different ways that you can tackle problems. And so hopefully these videos have been a fun look into how you as an individual or you as a team might go about creating your own animated projects with characters like these, with tools like these, in these full sequences, with shots and subsequences. Hopefully this was just a helpful learning experience, and I hope you get a lot out of it. And so we really hope you enjoyed these videos. Thank you so much for watching all of this. If you found this helpful and you want more of it, again, I'm Sir Wade, and you can find me over on YouTube. I've got a whole animation channel where I'd love to hear from you. Jump in the comments, let me know what you want to see. And if you'd like a more personal approach, you want a classroom environment where you can actually ask your direct workflow questions, and I can hopefully help you sort it out, I have my own courses, as you've heard me say before, and if I can, I'd love to help. But thanks so much, and happy animating.